Hey guys, Table here. Today I got a Hipper replay for you in the map Fault Line Capture the Base mode. Hipper's the Tier 7 German cruiser. And how I have the Hipper set up, I got Shear, which is my only real viable option for the ship. I think it's about a level 8 or so. And for the ship upgrades, aiming systems mod, both steering gear mods, and I can't remember what the 4 slot's called. It's the one that increases the range by about 5%. Now, during this replay, I had the hull upgraded, but not the firing range upgrade on the ship. So you can see a little bit early on here, there's some shots that I was hoping to be able to shoot, but the guys were just outside of my range. But once you get the ship fully upgraded, you'd be able to hit those shots. Now, the Hipper for me, playing it for the first, I don't know, X amount of games until I got the hull upgraded, it seemed like a fun ship to play and capable, but you'd find yourself really working and having what you would perceive to be as a good game in terms of how you're playing it. And then by the time the game's over, you're kind of disappointed with the damage output. And so it kind of was I don't know if necessarily challenging, but is the right word, but demanding ship in terms of getting the results you wanted. Now, why the hull upgrade is so key for this is it cuts down on the rudder shift additionally by, I believe, about 2 seconds. And you really need to be angling your incoming fire properly, or you're going to be taking some severe shots. And it's like a maneuverable ship with the double steering gear setup, which I strongly recommend. But it's not quite maneuverable enough. But once you get that hull upgrade, it helps your steering even more. And that's when it really starts to shine. Now, the hull upgrade also increases the HE damage, which is nice in terms of, because you're going to find yourself firing a lot of HE shells in the ship, which I'll talk about more as we go on. But just the little boost to the HE damage will help you accumulate more damage as the game goes on. It ups the fire chance by about 2%. I got on my setup, it's 14.5. And of course, you have your HP boost by upgrading the hull. So the key to German destroyers, or I'm sorry, German cruisers, is understanding the AP it's able to penetrate at far less steep angles than like an American AP cruiser shell, for instance. So the targets need to be basically fully broadside to you. They need to be nearly flat for those shells to fully penetrate. And so we've talked about the HE shells before, but they have very high penetration chance, very low damage, and, you know, not the greatest fire starting chance known to man. So HE, while you need to be shooting it, if AP is not viable, it's not going to rack up a lot of damage for you. Now here we got Nakatsuki right off the bat, and switched to HE shells right off, you know, to engage him. I got some torps down just in case he did sail down. I can see there we landed probably about all the shells, and that salvo wrecked him for about half his health. Here's a little bit of a misplay. I need to pop that sonar right off the bat. German sonar is basically like a short-range radar, and you know it's about 5-kilometer range on it. So being a little bit slow on it allowed him to get one more salvo into me. Not the end of the world, but just a little bit slow in the uptake there in terms of the play. But we got him on fire. He's gonna die anyway, but we're gonna launch one more salvo at him, and he gone. Now here we got a couple cruisers in front of us. We have a Baltimore that's further out and a little bit north to this position, and then the New Orleans, which is following them up. Now, getting back to the shells for a second, you need to be using the AP when it's viable, just because if you're not using it, you're going to be crippling your damage output. We do have a Mayoko too that was in the area too, so we do have 3 enemy cruisers. You can see this target's pretty much fully broadside, and we're able to just, you know, shower them with damage. And you do not want to be pointing a full broadside at the Hipper. It will, assuming the pilot knows how to aim properly, they're going to absolutely tear your ship to shreds. So battleship, cruiser, it doesn't really matter. You just don't want to be getting a full broadside. Even, like, take a look at this New Orleans here. He's not steeply angled, but he's lightly angled, and we have the majority of that salvo bounced. So that's a perfect illustration of what I'm talking about here. where not a particularly steep angle. Baltimore, for instance, would have torn a lot of holes into that ship, but the Hipper was unable to do a lot of damage on itself. Well, that ship he continued to be broadside, and he wanted to stick his nose out at us, so we popped him there and put him on the bottom of the sea. And now we do have the Baltimore coming in. Now the Baltimore is my highest priority tier 7 target. Its value goes down a little bit with each destroyer that your team loses. And that's one of the, the radar ships, I put such a premium on killing them because they're able to absolutely destroy your destroyers. And, if you're in a situation where there's no destroyers left, I mean, the Baltimore is always going to be a good ship, so it's never going to hurt you to kill him, but you really need to get rid of them if you have destroyers remaining. Now again, New Orleans, not the steepest angle. Maybe wasn't the best aimed shot, I don't know, but even with just a little bit of angling, you're getting a lot of bounces and stuff. So we got we got a nice Citadel salvo there, but those are probably a little bit better angled. Now I kind of make an interesting play. I didn't notice that all the destroyers were dead, but again, there was one destroyer left, and I just have a tendency to try and kill Baltimores. If they're broadside to me, it's a strong ship regardless of whether there's still destroyers in play. And our secondary is actually able to finish that New Orleans off, but in retrospect, I would probably have just finished that New Orleans off just to minimize the damage he's able to do to me. But I was able to angle to both ships at the same time quite successfully, so I wasn't as worried about him. And the Baltimore's guns are much more threatening than the New Orleans, so I could go back and forth. You can make the case either way. If I should have killed the New Orleans, I guess I probably would say I should have, but we were able to take a decent shot at the Baltimore when he was still fairly broadside to us. Now I'm angled pretty properly to me, and he's engaging someone else. Even if he's shooting at me at this angle, he's not going to do a lot of damage, so you can see I'm not feeling threatened by him at all, and then the fact that he's shooting someone else is just, I'm going to be able to start raining down these HE shells. And again, had I been shooting AP here, you'd probably be getting 0 damage per salvo, or maybe a little 400 little splash here or there, just by getting lucky against the superstructure. But HE, when you need it, definitely switch back and forth. And I think Shear does have that perk that allows you to switch shell types quicker. I can't remember how I have them set up because I don't really care about Shear that much. But it's worth your time to put the proper shell in the barrel, for sure. So we're able to finish off the Baltimore finally. So at this point in the game, we got roughly double our base HP in terms of damage output, 4 kills, so it's not a bad game. And taking a look at the map, they do have an enemy destroyer, enemy cruiser that are unspotted. They do have a plane sighted down to the south, so you can assume the cruiser's down there. Locating the destroyer, I'm going to take a look at his last known position and then make the assumption he might be coming north to attempt to cap, or else he's sailing towards people that were last spotted on my team. So when you're trying to locate ships that are unspotted, you kind of have to take a look at the context of the game and what they're likely to do. Usually players are not particularly erratic in what they're trying to do. Once they make up their mind, they're going to continue to pursue that objective. So comparing the cruiser, or the Hipper to the other tier 7 cruisers, you need to keep in mind I really like the Baltimore. I really like the Megami. So if I say the Hipper's my 3rd favorite tier 7 cruiser, you need to take that with a grain of salt. And with the understanding that I'm comparing it to 2 of my favorite ships in the game. But that said, I would rank it 3rd in terms of my favorite tier 7 cruiser. But, the verdict is I really like the ship, especially once it's upgraded. It really starts to shine. But prior to the hull being upgraded, and if you're not running double steering gears, you're going to have a hard time maneuvering your ship to be properly angled. And I think that's going to frustrate you in terms of your results that you're achieving in the ship. Not to say you can't set up ships in different ways, but that's how I would recommend doing it. So that's a look at the Hipper for you. I hope you did enjoy it. If you did like the video, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions for me, comments, leave them below. Love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.